for 2 weeks.
Okay. Call the meeting to order. Rebecca, please call the roll.
Gandy.
Yes.
Esty. Yes. Toohill.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Anderson. Yes. Flournoy.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Great. We do have one deletion on the agenda, which is we are not going to hear from Judy tonight on the Area 15 housing report, multifamily housing. There's some additional information that Judy's waiting from, so we're going to delete that from the agenda. We'll bring it back at the appropriate time. Are there any other changes to the agenda, Councilman? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes of the November 28th, 2022 council meeting. Approval of the November 30th, 2022 special payroll in the amount of $25.84. Approval of the December 9th, 2022 payroll in the amount of $166,111.39. Acceptance of the library board minutes. Acceptance of the volunteer committee minutes. Acceptance of the commercial personnel committee minutes. I'm getting tongue-tied tonight. Acceptance of the property committee minutes. Approval of a tax increment financing certifications. Approval of November finance report. Resolution authorizing funds transfers. Resolution of employment in the police department. Resolution of employment in the park and recreation department. Approval of the liquor license for La Hacienda de Mario. Revive Entertainment LLC, Hy-Vee C-Store. Approval of ACH payment to Iowa Department of Revenue in the amount of $16,192.42. Approval of total claims in the amount of $571,251.11, contingent upon approval of accepting projects final. There were no claims greater than $75,000.
Move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, moved by Gandy, second by Anderson. Any discussion?
I recommend paying the claims.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Gandy.
Yes.
Anderson. Yes. Flournoy.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Esty.
Yes, but I have to abstain from the minutes of November 28th because I wasn't here.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Okay, so our next order of business is to swear in our patrol officer, Riley Lunsford. Oh, I came a long way.
I know.
Go up front there, go in the middle of everybody.
Are you okay?
Are you all right?
She all right?
Just put a red flag on that. Or a pillow.
Is she okay?
I assume we have pictures out there. Mel's got her hands.
Mel's got a camera. Connor's got a camera.
Okay, so I want you to repeat after me and raise your right hand. I, Riley Lunsford,
I, Riley Lunsford,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of Iowa,
and the Constitution of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of police officer
discharge all the duties of police officer
in the city of Fairfield as now
in the city of Fairfield as now
or hereafter required by law.
or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations. Say go ahead. We're glad to have you aboard, and we'd like you to take just a few seconds and tell us about yourself and who's here with you tonight.
Okay. So I'm Riley Lunsford. I'm from Ottumwa, Iowa, born and raised there. I have my grandpa Dan here. He helped me get physically fit for the requirements and everything. And then I have my grandma Gayla, and then my dad Jason, and then my mom Miranda, and then I have my cousin Bailey right here. He's serves in the Air Force right now, but yep, that's who I have with me. Yep.
again, congratulations and thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Walk away from the television.
Watch it. She might have known too.
Yeah, we work together. Oh, yeah. She's, yeah. She's definitely way from me.
But I wasn't sure.
We work together.
Okay, so it's always great to swear in a new officer, and we hope she'll be safe and have lots of fun. Okay, so let's move on to public forums and appearances. First up is Lindsay Bauer from the Fairfield Arts and Convention Center, and she's going to give the annual report.
Good evening, council members. Pleasure to see you as always. I believe you have received the copy of the annual report that we published this October, and it is a brief summary of what we were able to accomplish with the support of our supporters, which includes yourselves. So thank you very much. There is a note in there that details a little bit about what we were able to accomplish because of the contribution of the city of Fairfield. We did a great deal of work on the building itself, which continues into this year, which is exciting. A lot of things that had not been done that needed to be done for a very long time. So the building is freshening, and not just freshening, but really preserving has been the focus, that we're making sure that this investment that the city made years ago is protected and that we're stewarding it well. We also were able to launch, right at the very end of our fiscal year, a brand new program which we're very excited about with the Cinema Fairfield project. And one of the things that we're most excited about it is that it provides low-cost entertainment right here in Fairfield. None of you will hear me argue against live performance ever. And the really important things that come out of coming together and experiencing something live. However, as much as we strive to provide free and low-cost opportunities for that, we're simply limited in what we can do. Of course, we launched the summer programming 2 years ago, which provides free concerts all summer, which is wonderful. But the film programming allows us to provide $6 tickets, so it's a lot easier for families to come out and folks who would not otherwise be able to buy a ticket to enjoy this gorgeous building that we have. Are there questions regarding the annual report of fiscal year 2022? Fantastic. Again, thank you so much for your involvement as a city council, and many of you are individual donors as well, and I do thank you for that. We have lots of plans for fiscal year 23, which I'm excited to talk to you about in January when we meet again. Thank you all.
We appreciate the work you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great, thank you, Lindsay. Next up is Dave Neff with the Carnegie Historical Museum. He's going to give his quarterly report.
Mayor, council, Mr. City Attorney, thank you so much for the opportunity. I think this is the third time I've had a chance to address you, so it won't be until sometime in 2023, but I'll look forward to doing that. Do you believe that attendance is a way of keeping track of how much popularity there is in this museum? For 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, we had over 200 people. Total of September of 291 people that attended and came through. Grand total year to date, 2,115 people. So people are looking at it. People are saying, I want to be there. I want to get a chance to see it. The enthusiasm carried over to class reunions. 13 class reunions from Fairfield High School attended this year. It was one short, so there you go. So, thank you. We're most pleased with the enthusiasm that's coming forward for our museum. As you have driven by, or if you drive by tonight, you'll see 25 decorated Christmas trees or illuminated trees. A year ago, we did 25, 24 were spoken for a year ago. We grossed $5,000 a year ago. Then we had expenses for the first year. This year, whether it's because people are not, with COVID and other things, we sold only 14, and I've heard 2 more, but until I get a check, I'm not going to report them. So it could be 16 trees, and with the 14, 2,650 is our gross amount coming in. So that project seems to be catching enthusiasm, and people drive by and see a display. We turn it on the same time as the downtown square gets turned on that Friday after Thanksgiving. New display of old friends. How many have heard of the Smithsonian Institute? Okay. Well, let's go all the way back to the 1890s when Senator James F. Wilson negotiated donation that came from the Smithsonian. Isn't it time to put a new, fresh look on those? Been sitting around for that number of years. So a new, fresh display of those Smithsonian artifacts is one of the next projects that we're putting on. October 14th was an auspicious day. Have you heard of IPTV, Iowa Public Television? They came on location. They wanted to learn about Fairfield being the first Iowa State Fair and the second Iowa State Fair. They stayed the whole afternoon, videoed and other things, and they promised to come back because once they saw what we had, they said, one day is not enough for us. So IPTV, that'll cover our state on that. Mike Carlson was on hand to tell his story about the 1954 Centennial Caravan. So he was probably only this big because Mom and Dad were driving the covered wagon from Fairfield all the way to Des Moines. And at that time, there were 509 people from Fairfield that made the journey to the State Fair to celebrate the Centennial. 471 horses were part of this caravan that came from Fairfield. 40 covered wagons covered the distance to Des Moines. And so that was the 100th. I've been around long enough, not for that one, but when they did the 150th and got a chance to see the excitement that carried on and the people that rode their horses all the way to Des Moines from there. Another big number, 6,000, not people, not dollars, but estimated number of entries that we have made. Our team has made with Chris Small and Therese Kaminsky into what's called Past Perfect. This is a software where you can itemize, take photos, tell the description of each of these different items. We're not anywhere close, but 6,000 items has been documented so far. And if you haven't driven by, please do. Look at the trees, but also look at the new sign that is in progress. I didn't know it was going to get going this fall. It's only been 3 years in the making. Anyway, it's vertical. There are pieces of the Barhide Chapel stone that are being erected on either side, Indian Hills Community College, and now Carnegie Historical Museum with our owl on top. In the past, there was one little small piece down at the bottom that said museum that way. Now people know where to find us on there. Are there any questions that I can offer for you an answer? I do thank you very much for your continuing support. We're having a ball with it. I've extended invitations. Anybody that wants a personal tour, we'd be more than happy. I know some folks have been through already and had a chance to see it, but lots of good things going on. And I think Andrew Carnegie, since we were only the 5th out of 1,400 and some, I think he'd be proud of where we're going. Thank you for your support. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave. And
Thank you.
please give our thanks to the board for all their energy and what they're doing there. Thank you. So next up is Mr. Ron Blair with the 2022-23 Natty Activities Update.
Hello, everyone. Everybody have that cheat sheet that we sent out? Okay, so we just wanted to give you just big picture, brief overview of what we've been doing, and we've been doing quietly quite a bit. As you see here, I'm just going to sort of run down the list, which is that we work closely with Park and Rec, both with Pam Kraft and with Calvin Todd, to make sure that they know every step that we're taking. The funds that come in via the CRP, those funds have been administered by the Park and Rec Foundation very successfully. Highlights. We, with those funds, we came to see that volunteers just wouldn't cut it, trying to do the types of conservation work that was needed there in timber and prairie areas. So we hired a qualified forestry consultant. It's called Four Season Conservation out of Mount Pleasant. Top-notch workers, top-notch equipment, very knowledgeable people, and they have removed invasive species from city-owned prairie and timber areas, specifically the Natty Prairie, the Eastman Wetland and Prairie, Natty Woodland Trail, Lamson Woods. And then, God bless them, City Administrator Aaron and Melanie helped with the administering of DNR BAT funds, and those funds have also gone now to do more conservation work. Specifically, right now, they're working, or just completed, that area that's north of the Pleasant Plain parking area. We recently hosted a roundtable discussion with other city and county conservation-oriented committees. We hired Werner Elmker to create short videos educating the community on different types of conservation practices. Did anybody, by any chance, look at that YouTube clip? All right, okay. And we've also done prairie burns and planting of new trees. So for next year, we're looking at additional, what are called second-year conservation work, burns, treatment of invasives. We're looking for new grant funds to match against the CRP funding. And finally, Brittany Tiller suggested that we look into creating a website and with different conservation groups. And she took it to, help me, the CBB head is Terry Baker. And Terry said, you know, people don't come to look just sort of for conservation. What they want to know is, where can we go birding? Where can we go kayaking? Where can we do bicycling? Where can we do hiking? So Terry wants to tie in tourism into conservation, and we just think that's great, because conservation is fantastic, but when it's also bringing in tourism, then that is even a greater blessing. So that's my overview. Any questions at all? Okay, very good. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks, Ron.
22. That's the number.
Really appreciate, again, all your work and the committee's work, so thank you very much. We'll move on to resolution, action items, and ordinances. First up is the action item, consideration of Fairfield Police Department assessment, final findings and recommendations, and we have Mr. John Thomas here to go through that.
Good evening, council members, Madam Mayor. Mike, I couldn't have screwed that up already, right? My name's John Thomas. I have a consulting company called Workforce Solutions. I appreciate your work. I'm currently a chief of police here in Iowa, in a small town. I'm a numbers guy. I like to crunch numbers. Part of what I've done, you're going to get about 15 or 16 slides tonight to really get down to the brass tacks of what I think you need to know. Ultimately, you're probably going to get a 25 to 30 page report with more information than you'll probably ever care to read, but you'll find it interesting.
I'm sorry, sir. You said you're chief of police?
Yes.
Where?
In State Center, up by Marshalltown.
Thank you.
Yep. So to start off with, the first thing I did, right, we have to identify the problem. The problem is you have a 15 officer authorized force, but we can't achieve 15 officers. So we have to ask ourselves why. Do we have a culture problem? Do we have a leadership problem? Do we have a compensation problem? Do we have a variation of all of those? And I assured Chief Thomas when I started this process, I said, this isn't a witch hunt. I'm not out to get you, but I'm going to interview everybody, and then I'm going to interview you last. I'm very pleased to tell you that Chief Thomas comes out smiling and clean. I interviewed every single officer here, plus I interviewed the officers that are no longer here. Why did you leave? What did you like about working here? What did you not like about working here? And so my kudos to the council is you have good administration. They like your leadership. They like your chief. They like your captain or lieutenant. They like your sergeants. Law enforcement has changed a lot. I'm in my 25th year. And it used to be when we started, we all started and you went somewhere and you were there for 25 years. And as things have evolved, departments, it used to be kind of the gentleman's agreement, if you will, or executive administrator agreement, like we wouldn't steal other people's products. And those days are gone. Everybody will steal anybody from you, including that young lady who's here will probably have 3 offers before she goes to the academy, because we all need good people. And I credit a lot of agencies with not lowering the standard. We do not need to lower our standards with the task that we ask these officers to perform. And so I give them credit for that. Some of the reasons you've lost your officers, just a couple of quick talking points before we dive into numbers, is things out of your control. My fiance's from the Des Moines metro area, and her job has more opportunities in a larger area than there is in Fairfield. You can't combat that. I'm a big fan of trying to hire when you can local, like this young lady from Ottumwa. That's a very logical hire, right? If you hire somebody from Carroll, Iowa, there's probably a chance they're going back to Carroll. How long are they going to stay? So I applaud your effort to hire local, find people that are invested in your community and things like that. I get very, very positive feedback from every officer I interviewed, and the officers you do have working here are happy. They're tired. They're worn out. The thing I want to really convey on their behalf is, and this is the difference, and I'm going to get to it here. I'll see which slide comes up first here. Down. Oh, down. There you go. I wonder if it didn't go anywhere. One of the things that I'll talk about, it's coming up in the next slide, is who are you competing with? So in Fairfield, where can your officers go? So geographically, here's the cities that you're really probably in greatest competition to, just by geography and the number of officers they have. And I can assure you that in any given one of those agencies, there's 1 to 4 openings. I mean, so you are not alone. I need to reiterate this. Marshalltown's 15 miles from where I work. It's a 40-person department, and they are 7 in the hole right now. So it is not uncommon to be 20 and 30% in the hole.
So,
yes, sir.
so these numbers are budgeted numbers, not actual officers?
Right. Those are authorized positions, and I can probably tell you Tom was 3 to 10 in the hole.
Now, if it says Fairfield, officer number 10.
I'm sorry. I'm sure I typoed that earlier today because I was putting a 0. Where it says distance from Fairfield, earlier today I didn't have a 0 there. You have 15. Right. I apologize.
Those are authorized numbers,
yes.
Not actual officers.
Right. Those are not actual warm bodies. And I apologize. I'm glad you caught me on that. I was fine-tuning this today just to make sure that it looked nice. But everybody is hiring. Albia was short 2 officers here a while back. When you're short 2 out of 6, 2 out of 7, that's a lot. The problem with that is this. We just can't go hire somebody off the street to do that job. And even if we hire them, you're looking at best case scenario. If you hire somebody and they're certified, you're talking 6 to 8 weeks. And if you hire somebody like this young lady who isn't certified and has no experience, you're talking 9 months to a year. So that's 9 months to a year that the rest of the staff have to fill in those holes, because we just can't reach over to the Parks Department or the Public Works Department and borrow somebody. As we compare cities by population, I think it's fair to say we have to look, are you adequately supporting your police department budgetarily? And I would tell you that I think you are. I took cities by population. There's 2 ways to look at who you're comparing to, one of which is by population. But the reality of it is, I don't think Fairfield loses a lot of people to Storm Lake. But by population, it's how we would compare somebody. I do think you might lose somebody, as you have to Washington, right? You could lose somebody to Mount Pleasant or those driving distances. So that's kind of where I've looked at this, and we'll show you some more numbers in a second. Just to explain to you my logic, and I'm a walker when I talk, so I apologize.
Hey, John, you want to take the microphone with you?
Yep, absolutely. Better? You bet.
Yeah. Now people can hear you.
You'll see that it says Fairfield is 100%. that means that that's who we're really comparing to. So with Grinnell being 97.4, that means they're a strong comparable because they're close to that 100% mark. The greater the distance you go away or you get bigger, the less comparable they are. So that's why it says 100%. Now, the nice thing is because of the size of your community, a lot of these cities were comparable. Of the cities by population, I threw out the red ones, and here's why. Norwalk and Pleasant Hill are Des Moines metros. They're not comparable to Fairfield. You are you're a larger city in an isolated area, if that makes sense. So I don't think it's fair to compare you to those. Keokuk is over on the river again. I didn't think it was fair to compare you to those. So of the other cities by population, with the number of officers, the average is 16.38, you're at 15. That's a very respectable place to be. I don't think there's any questioning that. If you look at the FY23 budget numbers, the average of the cities we use, the average is 2.34 million, and Fairfield is at 2.46. So again, I think you're adequately providing financial resources for your agency. One of the things that's difficult about law enforcement is we're hard on the general fund. Police and fire are expensive, necessary animals, but there's no way not to be friendly about it, or not to be expensive about it. I think it's fair to look at those cities at your 810 limit and say, how do we compare? Obviously, Pella has a much higher tax evaluation, so their $810 are much larger. What I thought was interesting, though, I threw Storm Lake out. I mean, when you have an outlier that is that far off the rest of the numbers, I don't think it's fair to use it. So I took Storm Lake out of this average. Your average is 48.64 of 810 funds are being spent on police, and you're at 46.79. So again, I think that goes to show you're being very consistent, you're being very fair. And I may not have started this, but I'll take any question at any point as we go, because I think it's easier than asking them all at the back.
John, could you explain again what are 810 funds?
That might be an Aaron question better. It's general fund dollars.
Yep, 810 levy, or our general fund levy, which is our assessed vet. It's the levy that we use to fund police, fire, all of our park and rec, Carnegie Museum, library, and FPAC, and anything else I'm forgetting? Administration in here in the office.
It is the general.
It's $8.10 is the maximum levy. That's what 810 means.
Thank you.
So it is the general fund dollars.
Interesting fact on that. That 810 cap was set in 1979 by the state and hasn't changed since then.
Right, because it turns on valuation.
Yeah. So one thing is I went into this very neutral. Like, I had not worked with a lot of, I used to bargain, my background is as a union representative for a few years. I bargained Grinnell, so I used to use Grinnell as a comparative, but I was very pleased when I started putting this data together. I'm like, well, I think you guys are doing a lot of things right. So that was great. One of the things that gets lost all the time on city councils, city administrators, and sometimes the public is, when we tell you we have to train a new officer, people say, well, okay, that's going to cost us $10,000 to send somebody to the academy. It doesn't cost you $10,000. It costs you $80,000. And I came up with this spreadsheet many years ago because of when I was doing negotiations, agencies would say, well, we'll just hire somebody and it'll cost us $10,000. What we're not accounting for is this. Typically, we hire somebody a couple weeks before they go to the academy, and then we have them in the academy 2 weeks. That number didn't come out right. I apologize. Let me get you a good number. Stand by 1 second. Like anything else with Excel, you can have a formula error, and I absolutely do, because 2 weeks, I'm going to come work for you 2 weeks, I make $18,000. I apologize for that.
I hope you didn't tell our new officer that.
That would be a gold mine.
That's before she's even trained.
Yeah. For a year ago.
Again, fat fingers, it should have been 84 hours. All right, your correct number is 59,921. 59,921. You work 12-hour shifts, so what had happened is, instead of putting in 84 hours, it put in 784.
So it's not 59,000, it's 5,009.
No, 59,000.
Is the total cost.
Is
the bottom line.
number.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, is this total number. So this number represents the fact that you have to pay them for 2 weeks till you send them to the academy generally. You pay them 16 weeks in the academy. It costs $99.75 to send them to the academy. Field training, if we're lucky, takes 14 weeks. We spend $6,000 buying body armor, boots, and shoes and coats. And the problem is, like this very nice lady here, that stuff is only going to fit her, right? It's not fitting Mr. Quaker or I or anybody else here. You have health insurance costs, you have pension contributions, so you're at yes, sir.
You haven't included the cost of shifts we have to cover when she's not here.
This
Was
is
it
not
all
include the
screen?
cost to backfill. Yeah, that's at the bottom. I am going to send this PowerPoint to you. I'm going to have Rebecca send it out to you so you have it in full frames. So you're at $60,000 and 6 months, 8 months to get somebody trained. And while you're down that person, everybody else has to carry that weight. And that's where your officers are tired. And that's where. So one of the things to talk about, though, is how do we recruit? I'm going to tell you why I recommend you don't do hiring bonuses. If you want to hire me, and I want to apply here, and you say, John, we'll give you $7,000, which are numbers that are being thrown out there. There are agencies giving $7,000 and $10,000 bonuses. What message do we send to the officer sitting in the hallway? Hey, thanks a lot for working all those days that you're supposed to be off. We just gave 10 grand to the guy who's never worked a day for us. Completely the wrong message. So please don't do that. What I would tell you is this. If you can steal an officer from Ottumwa and they have money that they have to pay back the city of Ottumwa on their contract, write the check. If you have an officer that you can hire and they have a contract with their current agency, and even if it's $10,000, write the check. Because what you save is the time on all the other pieces of training. It'll save you 40 grand to write that one $10,000 check. And I don't think the gentleman in the hallway will complain about that. But he's going to be bitter and sore, and you're going to create heartache with your employees if you give them a big bonus just to walk in the door. So it's something for you to consider. One of the things also to consider is, how is your command staff structured? Currently you have a chief, you have no captains, you have 3 lieutenants, 3 sergeants, 8 officers for a total of 15. This means you have 7 command to 8 officers, so 46% of your workforce is command staff. That's a little high. I'm going to encourage you in my final recommendations to change that for 2 reasons. Number 1, I think it makes better command staff structure sense. Number 2, with what I'm going to propose to help you solve your problem and recruit, it's going to save you money. Because the more command staff you have, the more money you have to pay command staff. Okay? The average is 37.65. I'm ultimately going to recommend to you that you have a chief, a lieutenant, and 3 sergeants. That will make 5 out of your 15 command staff. That will leave you at 33% command staff, 1/3, and 2/3 will be regular officers. That will be my final recommendation to you, and you'll see why in a minute. Any questions on that? I tried to keep this short because I could do 6 hours on this.
Yes, sir. How do the investigative officers fill in fit into that?
Right now, there is no, and Chief Thomas, feel free to, if I misstep anywhere, feel free to pipe in. Right now, officers take their own investigations. If there's a sexual assault on midnights, that officer typically is going to see it through, and the day officers will fill in as they can, or the officer will come work overtime. That's how I understood it. Does that sound right, Chief?
Yes, sir.
So, as part of one of my final recommendations, I have a recommendation. It's really up to the chief to decide, but you have a big enough agency and enough things going on, I would recommend to you that you probably have a dedicated investigator. It will save you money on overtime, and if you, depending on who you select to do it, that person will help make your younger officers better investigators and ultimately fill that spot.
It would also help with continuity, wouldn't it?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So right now, your officers are set for a 2.5% wage increase on July 1. I understand that's what you set it for. I had a Zoom call last week with Aaron, and I chatted with Rebecca about it. This is what I'm going to recommend to you, and I'm going to go through what it means in each of the qualifications or places. What I'm proposing to you is a market adjustment to your starting pay, and then a wage scale to follow through. I'm a big fan of having set. The good news is, moving forward, all you have to do is change the starting officer's pay, and everything else will be calculated for you, because I like to have things build on things. So in this situation, from your top officer pay, I believe it's 5% to your starting sergeant, and then there's a percentage that's between steps. Your lieutenant is a set percentage above the sergeant. Your chief is a set percentage above the lieutenant. So next year, when you're in a budget discussion and you're like, well, what are we going to do for pay? The only person you have to change is the bottom, and everything else will carry through for you. And that's how I like to have things laid out. This number will scare you that I'm about to talk to you about. Again, public safety is expensive. The average wage increase for police officers last year was minimum 5%. There are agencies out there right now giving 7s and 8s and 12% increases. And there is an agency that just did a settlement the other day with their officers for 7% year 1, 6% year 2, 6% year 3, and they were already pretty well paid.
Is that state of Iowa average?
That's in Iowa, yep, for patrol officers. That's not command staff or anybody else. The bottom line of it is right now, the demand is driving the market. Now, I am going to tell you, money will not fix everything. Your officers work 12-hour shifts. They have every other weekend off for 3 days. And don't change that unless you decide to go to a 10-hour shift with even better work balance life, because they like their 12-hour shifts. Having 15 years ago, the big shift that everybody wanted to go to was 6 on, 3 off. And what we found is 6 days on, that 6-day productivity is way down, attitudes are way down. If you work midnights, your first day off is screwed because of sleep. So stay on your 12. They like them, it's good for you, it's actually a recruiting tool for you instead of working other. Some of your officers who left have said, we'll see, the proof will be in the pudding, have said, I hate my new schedule. If the money was better, I would come back. It's up to the chief to decide who he wants back, if they're really willing to come back. So let me walk you through what this means for each person. The other thing that I've chatted with Aaron and Rebecca about is this. Your officers have been doing a lot being short bodies, which means you've saved some money. If you are agreeable to the wage scale that I'm going to propose for you and how I would implement it, how I would recommend implementation, I would give it to your officers early and then not do anything in July. Give them their wage scale early, send the message you appreciate them. You're still going to be short for the next 2 to 4 months. So because you're short, it will not have a negative impact on your budget. Lieutenant, is it Smith? So here's the great thing. Lieutenant Smith did a ton of work putting together a wage study. And then we did the same information, and we agree with him. I have to walk back over here for a second. So starting pay, right now, July 1 of 23, this is starting pay for all these comparables. FY24 projected starting pay, I gave everybody 5%, and I plugged in Fairfield's 2.5. And I did the same for the top. Fairfield right now is ranked number 4 out of this 12. But as of July 1 of 23, you would fall down 1. On the top pay, you would still be number 3. Here,
Is that assuming that all of those other cities are going to be adopting a 5%
that
increase?
is.
Okay, so those are just assumptions.
Yep,
right?
those are
Okay.
assumptions. I think they're pretty close. There might be some 4s in there, but there might be some 6s.
Okay.
Here is what I propose for you. I think you take your starting pay to $60,000. This is where you were at the bottom. This is where you go to at the top. The orange reflects where it puts you in ranking. Your biggest competitor is the sheriff's office. I knew that coming in. Nobody likes losing to the guy that we share a kitchen with. And so I've tried to craft this recommendation in such a way that you can afford it and that we beat the sheriff's office. So you will notice that this puts us $40 ahead of the sheriff's office. They're at $60,926. We go to $60,986 for officers. Top pay, they're at $72,546. We end up at $72,608, $50 ahead of the sheriff's office. That was very deliberate because you're losing people to the sheriff's office. And all those guys have to do is walk across the street, walk across the hall, change from blue pants to green pants, pick up their car and go home. And their schedule isn't as good as yours. So maybe we can get somebody back from the sheriff's office. I don't know. But so this really follows a pattern. The city of Windsor Heights did this 15 years ago. They went from losing people all the time to say, listen, we're going to pay in the top 20%. We are going to be at the top of the pile, and we're going to have a good schedule. And they stopped the bleeding. I think if you implement this, you will be able to help yourselves. Let me back up one step also. Here's the other thing you will see in a recommendation. I'm a 25-year veteran, and I'm certified to teach all sorts of stuff. I want you to think of police departments for just 1 minute like the private sector. Pay people for their experience. Don't be afraid to take a 15-year officer from another department, because I really think if you look at how this affects Mount Pleasant, I think you could steal somebody from Mount Pleasant who might have 10 or 15 years on, or even 20, and wants to get their high 3 to 5 to retire. I don't think anybody starts at the top. You have to do a little time here to be at the top. But I would not be afraid to start somebody at step 4 and let them top out in 1 year. That's what we would do in the private sector. We would go steal somebody else's talent, and we would pay them as competitively as we could. And I encourage you and implore you to do the same thing here. So, went the wrong way. The guy in the back room is going to yell at me. Look at where Mount Pleasant's going to be, 63,336. Look where you go to if you follow my recommendation, 72,6. For $9,000, somebody in Mount Pleasant will drive 30 miles to come work for you. I did this with full intentions of 2 prongs. Number 1, if there's 2 agencies hiring and one starts at 58,900 and one starts at 60,009, they're coming where the 6 is, right? You don't buy the $20,000 car, you buy the $19,000 car. You go to the agency that starts at 60,000 with every other weekend off, I'm in. That's attractive. And the top, I absolutely built this in such a way that I hope you get to steal people. I hope you get to be doing the stealing instead of being stolen from for a while. I think you can recruit if you do this, but I think you have to be willing to put people in based upon experience at that third step or even that fourth step. Because if you hire somebody with 15 years experience, you don't have to pay back their academy. It's been paid for years. So pay them well for their experience, top them out early. You should consider even giving them time off. Start them with 2 weeks of vacation. Consider starting them with a third week of vacation once they get 6 months off. That's how you're going to get people.
How long would this last?
This is a 1-year solution. There'll be the recommendation for what I'll call the lateral hire incentive is pretty spelled out, where I think you consider, if you hire somebody and they have 3 young kids, loading them with 40 hours of sick leave is a big deal. So if my child's sick, I can stay home with them. And then next year you would need to do a cost of living increase then to the scale. But this is a one-time reinvent the wheel, overhaul it.
When you say one time, I guess my question is, wouldn't some of these competing cities raise their pay?
Oh, they are. Make no qualms about it. As soon as you approve this, everybody in 30 miles of you is going to say, what do we need to do? I think you're going to see my final recommendations. You have a better schedule than a lot of your comparables. Quite honestly, you have nicer buildings. I know you guys have gone, please don't take offense when I say guys. I know the city has gone out of their way. They have a nice fleet. They drive nice cars. Those things matter to officers. Like, nobody wants to drive the car with 140,000 miles on a carbon monoxide leak. They just don't. So I think if we can fix the money, I think you could see 2 to 3 of your officers who have left potentially come back if you want them. The other nice thing is, if you don't, thank you, but no thank you. Because the best thing you can do, and you are on a great start, is to build a great team. You don't, I tell people this all the time, you don't want an MVP who doesn't play well with others. I'll take a 7 who together makes my team a 10 over a 10 who doesn't play well with anybody else. You'll accomplish more. And I think what we're going to propose to you, I think will solve that. So this is what the officers look like. On the sergeants, we go to the same thing. Right now, Fairfield's sitting in the middle of the pack. On the start, we're almost at the bottom. On the top, if everybody else gets a 5%, you're going to stay where you're at on the beginning, and you're going to fall 1 more spot on the top. My recommendation, based upon how the officer scale works, you now go ahead of Waverly and you tie Boone. You're $900 behind Boone. And you now go above Washington PD. So what you will consistently see is, by implementing this, you're going to be in that top 20% to top 30%. You're going to stay in the top third. I don't care what the other people do, you're still going to stay in the top third. Because some of this is, these other folks who have already made adjustments, they might have made them last year. I know Oskaloosa PD right now is trying to do the same thing you're doing. They actually called me the other night and said, okay, let's talk about this. So, but this is for your sergeants. This only affects, essentially, right now it affects 4. My is it 4 right now, sir? You have 4 spots, 4 positions, you only have 2 filled. Ultimately, I want you to have 3 sergeants. So this affects 3 people. On your lieutenants, right now, your lieutenants, there's less departments with lieutenants and captains, but as you can see, you're in the middle on the starting, you're at the bottom on the top. If you implement what I would like you to do, you're going to go to number 2 on the top, and you're going to go to the middle, number 2 on the starting, you're going to go to the middle on the top. And again, this would be for 1 person. And then we have to consider the chief. Yes, sir.
I was just curious, in our turnover, are we losing mostly patrol officers, or
mostly patrol
leadership?
Yep, you're losing patrol. And that's pretty common, because by the time people go up, especially your lieutenants, They are deeply rooted in your community almost always. However, I'm going to tell you, I've seen 20-year lieutenants and captains from agencies in the Des Moines Metro change to other agencies for the right compensation package.
We just lost our third sergeant we lost to the sheriff's office, was also our canine handler. So it's usually patrol officers, but we're also losing leadership. Last couple of sergeants have gone to a different sheriff's office.
How many people are patrol officers are leaving because they don't see opportunity to advance into leadership?
That's not why they're leaving. Most of it was money or things you can't control. The spouses, I know you lost a couple to Indianola. Those guys are going to go to Indianola. I don't care what you pay them. And Indianola can afford to pay whatever they want because they have a tax base and they're outside the metro and things like that. I think this solves your problem at the sheriff's office a lot. And then I just have to throw out the chief, right? The chief's starting pay is at the bottom of the comparables, and the chief's top-out pay is at the bottom of the comparables. Sadly, I did propose an adjustment for the chief. I'm sorry, chief, I'm not getting you in the top third like everybody else. But you have a good chief, and people aren't leaving because of the chief. That was my worst fear was coming in here saying, the guy in the back of the room's got to go. Like, that would be a little awkward. I was prepared to do that, but I'm happy to say that's not what it came out to. Ultimately, by eliminating as they retire, right? You have 2 lieutenants, one slotted to retire. When she retires, you fill her with a sergeant. Your other 2 sergeant positions, we're putting money in the pay scale. We eliminate them and we make them officers. When you crunch the numbers, we get within about $46,000 of what you're budgeting for FY23. Here's a caveat, which will be up to all of you, is the 15th position. I budgeted this with losing the 15th spot, trying to be nice to your checkbooks. I don't know that that's the right answer. Here's what I can tell you. Working 12-hour shifts, you have days A, days B, nights A, nights B. 3 on a shift is 12. Your lieutenant's 13. Your chief is 14. I think you need an investigator. I think if you can financially afford it, you should have 15, and that 15th spot should be your investigator. The way I like how the command staff structure would work is you would have 2 officers and a supervisor on every shift. So you're going to have younger officers unless we get lucky, and through this we can steal some of those 10 and 15. Yes, sir.
If this accounts for transfer of officers from other departments, when you crunch the numbers, does it eliminate the training that we're going to save? It does. Now, a quick question then: does it eliminate the 80,000 or the 56,000?
It would eliminate the 56,000. The 80,000 was a typo. It would eliminate that 59,000.
But that wasn't figured into the other spreadsheet.
It would save you 53,000 a person because you're still going to spend $6,000 to buy them boots, shoes, and other things. Right. And the one thing that this doesn't account for is if you have to hire and train 5 officers, I didn't account for that $250,000 that you're going to have to spend. Some of it's already budgeted, but I'm pretty sure Chief's budget and Aaron's budget don't have 5 academy spots and an extra $50,000 hitting there. I doubt the uniform allowance budget has an extra $20,000 there. I do think the greatest resource you have to recruit is the gentleman sitting in the hall. It is the chief behind you. If your people are happy, which they are, they're going to bring people here. And if you can show them in dollars and cents, there's a Facebook group called LE Iowa. That's where a lot of these things get talked about. And when you see who's recruiting, they are pushing hard. New cars, nice building, every other weekend off, good pay. One of the things I'll go back to is, and I did this very intentionally, is your pay steps. An officer would reach top pay in 5 years. I did that on purpose. A lot of other agencies around you may top out close to you, but it takes them 8 or 10. Top out in 5. Don't be afraid to get there sooner and keep your people. It will help you keep people, because with this wage scale, looking at your geographic comparables, people will have to take pay cuts and go to worse schedules to leave you. Why would they leave if they have every other weekend off and they're paid well? I think the answer is they won't. I've seen this work in other agencies. The biggest thing I feel bad about is, I presume you wanted me to be cautious with your dollars, so I penciled out eliminating that 14th officer. If you can afford to do it, I would tell you to do it. But then here's a great thing. With this pay scale, chief can go find an investigator from another agency and bring them in at step 4. And now you have an investigator with experience that you would have had to wait 5 years for somebody to get and for somebody to buy. Again, I don't know how long I've been talking. I could sit here and have a discussion with you for 4 hours. My biggest concern that I talked to Rebecca and Aaron about was I wanted to get you something as you prepare for your budgets. You will end up with a 20 or 30 page report, very nicely broken out with lots of data about calls for service, crime, what kind of crime you have, how you compare to those other cities and things like that. But at the end of the day, that's not what is going to recruit people or keep people. And I have all the information to send to Aaron and Rebecca, and they can prepare a resolution for you for next month. But I stand by my numbers and I stand by my strategy to help you solve your problem.
You said this was a 1-year fix?
We're fixing everything in 1 year, so the next year you just have to do a COLA.
So how long do you think that impact would last?
I'm guessing you will probably not have to make any adjustments for another 3 to 5. It all depends on the market. It all depends on how crazy everybody else gets. I mean, never in my life did I think we would see police officers make $100,000 a year, and the city of West Des Moines will get you to $103,600, $103,600 in 8 years. It's just mind-boggling, and they're not alone. I mean, I'm doing a consulting job right now, contract job for the city of Waterloo. They're in the 90,000s. Davenport, 95,000.
What do you think about the idea of offering a scholarship to a local person to go to school to become a police officer and come to work for us?
I think all ideas are on the table. And here's the other thing. Number one, I appreciate you hiring me, but number two, you hired me to come down here and help you. I will come down for a work session. I will come back in January and meet with one of you or 3 of you or your public safety committee. I enjoy doing this. I teach at the academy a lot. I can tell you that if you pull this off, if you endorse this concept, I have a few people waiting for me to say, go apply at Fairfield, we got the deal done. Because that's how the network works.
Question.
Yeah.
One thing we've talked about and that's been batted around is an admin person. How do you feel about that? Is it needed? It's not essential? Let it be?
It would be nice, but I think the chief would back me up. If I had to choose between, if you adopted what I would like, and you had to choose between a 15th officer and an administrative person, I would want the detective. But again, I think if you put out there, we're hiring for a detective, wages commensurate with experience, starting pay up to $70,119. And but the other thing is that detective's probably going to get Monday through Friday. You're going to find some 10 and 15 year officers in a radius of here going, that looks pretty good to me. I really feel that this is a solid strategy.
I agree with John, and I would say we don't eliminate the 15th officer, but we plan on hiring 14, and then when we get to the 15th officer, then we'll address that issue at that point in time. I'm not quite as optimistic of getting to full staff in 4 months. So I think that'll take a little bit longer. And so I think that'll give us more time to address the issue as far as finding the money to pay for a 15th person.
Because you're short though, and Aaron and I talked about this and Rebecca as well, I do think it's a nice caveat if you adopt this to start the officers on it early. They just have to understand when everybody else in the city gets a pay raise in July 1, we gave you yours in March or April because we know you've been working hard to fill those vacancies. We just you can't contract this, right? Public Works, if the 3 people break their legs, you outsource it. We're in the business that you can't outsource. I mean, police and fire, it's expensive. It's expensive to train, it's expensive to pay people, and it's very hard to outsource. You will all get an email from Rebecca with this PowerPoint with my contact information. Feel free to call me, feel free to email me. I enjoy these conversations, and I would tell you that in the next 2 to 3 weeks, you can expect your comprehensive. It'll be a book. I mean, it'll be 20 to 30 pages with more information than you probably ever dreamed of. And with that, I very much appreciate your time, and thank you for sharing your police department with me. I've enjoyed getting to know them very much. And you got a guy named Chief Thomas. How can you? Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So we've listed action item.
Just accept it.
Is that how you want this? Just
report.
accept this report? Okay. So, who wants to make that motion?
I'll make the motion that we accept the report
Second.
entitled Police Department Assessment.
Okay. First and second to accept this report on the police department assessment. Final findings and recommendations. Any discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Next action item is to set a public hearing for rezoning property at around 1948 Highway 1 from B1 General Business to R3 Multifamily. We will set that for Monday, January 9th, 2023 at 7 p.m.
I'm just up here if there's any questions.
Sorry, why are you here?
I don't know where you're here. If there's any questions before you set the public hearing.
In 100 words or less, what are we setting a public hearing for?
Rezoning MIU land on the west side of Highway 1.
This is a business to R3.
Yes.
And it's within city.
Is it an R1 building originally?
No. It was a business.
It wasn't one of the
people
campus
run
buildings?
businesses out of an R1 building, but I'm just curious if we're really turning an R1 building into R3 building or not.
No, I believe it was a structure designed for business, not residential, that has been remodeled into
residential.
Is that the one just right beyond the bridge?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which bridge are we talking about?
Going north out of town?
Oh, on the west side of town?
North side. On the north side of town, on the west side.
That's what I meant.
Right, yeah.
I know the building.
Bridge.
Right next to the entrance sign.
Yeah, I know the building. I've been in there a few times.
Yeah.
Motion to set
Yeah.
public hearing.
Second.
Okay, moved by Anderson, second by Esti. Any other discussion?
It's probably going to become a dormitory or something like that.
Yes, that's correct, I believe. No more discussion, go ahead and call the roll.
Anderson.
Yes.
Esti. Yes. Gandy.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Next action item is consideration of award of the 301 to 307 West Briggs Avenue, which is the former DOT site accessory building sale. Aaron's going to talk about that?
Yeah, can you pull it up? When we had the bid letting, we had each building that was
set for the public hearing or for the public bid. Unfortunately, we had two bidders that came in at the exact same price for the blue carport that's up there. The other two buildings, John Carlson outbid the other person by $1, and then the metal building was bid for $125. We need to scroll down.
So that's why the second bids are there?
Yeah.
You tied.
So we had a second bid, and the community school district outbid Mr. McKee by $4. So those were all sealed bids when Rebecca and I opened them, and we would recommend approval of the bids to...
When was that second bid?
When was the second bid? It was...
You got two at the time, and then the school district bid?
No, they were one of the two bids at the start.
Scroll back up. The only two people that were allowed to bid the second time around were the ones that put a bid in the first time around.
Correct. The two that bid the second time were the two that were the tying bid.
So that probably wasn't announced publicly, was it?
Correct.
It was just privately done because it was a tie.
What was that? I couldn't read. What was that number on the first bid?
$2,000.
So we need three recommendations here, right? Three motions.
Sure.
So I'd move we accept the bid from the Fairfield Community School District for, can't read it.
Building A.
Building
the blue.
A.
2505.
The blue carport.
2555?
2505.
2505 for building A.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Gandy.
Sure.
Any questions? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Esty.
Yes.
Let's go to building B.
I recommend we approve or accept the bid of 126.
120 for building B is the metal building, so that was won by Justin Clements for $125.
$125, building B.
Second.
Second by Anderson. Any discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Esty. Yes. Gandy.
Yes.
Okay, and building C.
I make the motion we approve the bid of building C for $126.
Yep.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Esty. Any discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Esty. Yes. Rasmussen.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Next action item is consideration of reduced retainage for 2022 Highway 1 water main replacement. Melanie, I see her coming up here.
So the water main project that was awarded to Lawson Construction of Kirksville, Missouri, which went from along Highway 1 from Harrison Avenue to Adams Avenue. It is substantially complete, meaning the water main is all in, tested, and all of the services are connected to the new main. They have replaced all of the concrete. However, what remains is the seeding and final cleanup, which they can't do this time of year. So we are recommending that you provide a reduced retainage, paying out $8,550.15, which means we would be holding $15,000 of retainage until the seeding is complete in the spring.
Okay, is there a motion to approve that?
Move to approve.
Moved by Rasmussen,
Second.
second by Anderson. Any discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Esty.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Next action item is consideration of the engagement letter with Piper Sandler. Aaron, you going to go over this?
Yeah. This is our engagement letter for our financing for Highway 1 project, for also the Step 3 USDA project. They handle all of our financing and our bonding here in the spring here, and so that's the engagement letter with them.
I make the motion that we accept the letter of engagement for Piper Sandler.
Second.
Okay, moved by Flournoy, second by Gandy. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Okay, then the next resolution is consideration of an engagement letter with Allers and Cooney.
Same rationale, except they're the attorneys that handle the bonding rather than the finance officer, so it's the same step.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Anderson, second by Flournoy. Any discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Anderson.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Okay, next action item, consideration of substantial completion of wastewater treatment step 1 aerobic digester project.
So I'm going to cover the next two items. The first one is to declare the digester substantially complete. The digester was paid for with the remaining USDA grant funds as part of the larger wastewater treatment plant project. Given the amount of contingency that we were required to carry for the treatment plant, we had leftover grant funds at the end, which is how this project's being funded. So first item is for the substantially complete. If you want to go ahead and do that one, and then I can explain the second one, I guess.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve that?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Gandy,
Second.
second by Ham. Any discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Gandy.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Okay, and then the second item is to declare it complete, final complete. The final contract amount, there is an error in Alex Potter's letter. The final contract amount was $785,000. So we would recommend considering the project complete and releasing the retainage in the next 30 days.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Anderson,
Second.
second by Gandy. Any discussion?
Yes. Why are there asterisks beside these three?
I just asked the
items?
same thing.
The bills that we paid depended on approving those. I'm sorry. The bills that we paid depended on approving those actions.
Oh, right.
So there's asterisk items up in our consent agenda that tie to these.
Contingent upon approval of accepting project.
It's the first time we've ever seen an asterisk on an agenda.
Okay.
Okay. So we approve these. Should we approve these, then a bill is paid?
Correct.
We already
You
approved to
hadn't-
pay them.
We already put the pay them, so yeah.
Okay.
Probably should approve these action items. All right.
Okay, any other
So
discussion?
second.
Thanks.
Oh, sorry, there's already a second. Excuse me.
If not, please call the roll.
Anderson.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Next action item, consideration of approval of change order number 6 and final completion of sanitary sewer conveyance step 2.
This sounds a lot like what Melanie just said. We're doing the same thing on step 2 that she just described for the digester. I'll cover these next two items here. The first one is you're actually doing three things at once here. You're approving the final quantities pay estimate, and then you're approving a final change order, which adjusts all of the contract quantities to match what was actually installed on the project. And then finally, you're approving the final release of retainage on the project. So
Am I right in reading the change order that they reduced the total cost by $500,000?
yeah, we ended up under budget by about over $500,000 on this project out of a $9 million.
Good job.
So yeah.
Now, that doesn't happen very often. Okay, so yes, so the first action item is the approval of change order number 6 and final completion.
Move to approve.
Moved by Rasmussen.
Second.
Second by Toohill. Any discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
And then the next one, next resolution, consideration of resolution accepting public improvements of sanitary sewer conveyance step 2.
Move to approve.
Moved by Rasmussen.
Second.
Second by Toohill. Any discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Next action item, consideration of agreement with Calhoun Burns and Associates, Inc. for 2023 bridge inspection and load rating.
Okay, so this is for our inspection of the box culvert over, or I should say, under Pleasant Plain Road, the box culvert under B Street, the Crow Creek Bridge, and the Walton Lake Spillway, which are all required by the state that those be inspected. And then we are, there is also the Fairfield Loop Trail Bridge over Highway 1 and the trail bridge over the railroad, which are also required. And so they have different analysis that are required that get turned into the state every 2 to 4 years, depending on which item they are. Then additionally, we have asked Calhoun Burns to look at the box culvert on D Street, right by the golf course, and the box culvert on Park Street, right by the golf course. Those are city owned. They're not large enough to be, fall under the state jurisdiction as far as funding or anything like that. So we want to kind of get a baseline where we're at, wanting to know how much life they have left. Do they need some repairs? Because again, they're not going to be eligible for funding like our Crow Creek Bridge is, and we just want to get a baseline for those. The contract amount is for an estimated $4,400 to Calhoun Burns and Associates.
Are we asking them to inspect a bridge that we know we're going to turn around and tear out?
Yes, but we have to.
But we have to.
Yes. They are actually the designers on that bridge as well, so
Okay.
they know.
All right.
Yeah. We potentially could lose our funding if we don't turn this report in. So.
Motion to approve. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, used to turn, it's a box, what is it, a box?
Box culvert.
What's a box, what is that?
So like a culvert on your driveway is
Yeah.
round about 15 inches.
Okay.
Box culverts are much larger and they're square.
Okay.
Shaped. They're typically 8 by 8 feet. You can walk through them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Cheaper than building a bridge, right?
They are cheaper than building a bridge, but they are very expensive and we want to make sure we maintain them.
They're preformed, usually out of concrete.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Anderson to approve this. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Esti. Any discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Okay, our next order of business is to have a public hearing on the matter of the authorization of a loan agreement and the issuance of not to exceed $12,500,000 sewer revenue capital loan notes of the city of Fairfield, state of Iowa. So I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who wants to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and we'll move on to the resolution of the same. So is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Moved by Gandy.
Second.
Second by Rasmussen. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Gandy?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Okay, then the next order of business is a public hearing on the matter of proposed amendment number 2 to the Highway 34 West Business Urban Renewal Plan in the city of Fairfield, state of Iowa. Aaron, will you just give a snippet here again what this is before I open the public hearing?
Yep. The last time we met, we approved an ordinance that took out the Walmart property out of this TIF area. This is actually adding the area east of Walmart to, butting up to Goodwill on the north side of the north side of the highway. You'll notice that there's a couple brand new buildings there that we're putting into the TIF area. That will allow us to capture some increment to help us pay for some of the debt that we have in that area that we've struggled to pay because of Walmart and just not growing assessed value there that we've done in the past.
Okay, so hopefully that we just reminded you of what that was for. So I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone that wants to speak on this? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and we will move to the resolution.
Sorry.
Okay.
I would also ask that we suspend the rules and we pass this and get this in place before
when we get to the ordinance.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's do the resolution first to pass this through the resolution. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Toohill.
Second.
Second by Ham. Any discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Toohill?
Yes.
Ham? Yes. Esti?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Okay, now we go to the ordinance that does the same, and Aaron has requested that you suspend the rules. And then we move this to the third and final reading.
So moved.
So moved to suspend the rules?
Yes. Motion to suspend the rules and move this to the third and final reading.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Gandy. I thought we did this in 2 votes.
You can't.
Yeah.
Okay?
Do you want to just suspend the rules?
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Thank you.
Okay, and Paul, you're
Second.
okay with second? Okay. Any other discussion on suspending the rules? Please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Ham? Yes. Esti?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
And then.
Motion to move this from the first to the third and final reading.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Toohill. Any discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Okay, that's our business. The mayor's report. First item is a request of a joint meeting with Jefferson County Board of Supervisors. I got a call last week from Dee Sandquist requesting a meeting to just discuss the ambulance situation. She would like to have it before Christmas. To me, the only time really possible is, a week from tonight on the 19th. So I'm leaving it up to you guys whether you want to do that or not.
What's the goal of the meeting? I mean, it sounds very vague if we're going to discuss the ambulance situation.
I think,
What I'm worried about is we won't have a consensus among the council.
Yeah. All Dee said was, the contract comes up next year, and she thought we should start a discussion together.
Before the end of the
And
year.
of course, no decisions made, but just start the discussion.
We have already started the discussion at the previous board meeting. And I presented something to Ways and Means on Saturday.
Okay.
Why is it important to have
Consistent
it?
with what we were talking about this weekend.
Why, if it's to start a discussion, why is it important to start it before the end of the year?
That's just her request. The sooner, the better. So,
The contract expires in October 1st,
So, last day of September next year.
so we really have like 10 months or more before the contract is up.
Not to go out of order, but should we discuss the ambulance subsidy issue before we decide whether or not we want to meet with the county to discuss it with them? So everybody's kind of
question.
on the same page here?
yeah, because I know there's some other discussions, so that's why I'm just saying, hey, this is up to you, council, how you want to proceed.
It's not
John,
even
do
clear
you
to
have
me.
a preference, legally, of what you think we should be doing?
There's a cat out of the bag as of this morning. Somebody turned in a news release to the media. About the same time the Board of Supervisors meeting ended, and I have a pretty good idea who did it. I think they're trying to derail the train. The reason that the Board of Supervisors want to have a discussion with us is they are very concerned that we may not have ambulance service like we've contracted for the third year of the contract. And the communications that went on with the chairman of our group, which had been circulated inside the 28 agency with the Board of Supervisors and the hospital, have caused us all concern that this might mean a breach. It might mean we are looking for some other alternative service.
Excuse me, John. What did the media, the news release say?
It said that it was discussed at the Board of Supervisors meeting, discussed care ambulance financial proposal, among other things. So somebody was probably present at their meeting, and that's where, so the Board of Supervisors discussed this and public.
Yeah, we, at our meeting, were intending to have a meeting with our agency members in closed session. And Julie Greason, the chair of the 28E agency, was going to communicate with the head of the private provider and see if we could get back on track to what we were all trying to get approved, which was an increase of $120,000 a year participated in thirds by our agency members. And in the meantime, something came out of the blue last week that was an enormous difference as far as what the ask was from the provider. Plus, there was another memo that came that said that the provider might have to reduce the service to simply one ambulance and leave us with half or less of what we contracted for 3 years. We were, 60 days ago, we were elated at the good information we were getting from the provider and the good reports we were getting on the service, and that's why we were sort of making haste to let's get this tied down for another contract extension if we can. And then it came up about that they were losing some money and we should see what we can do about an additional subsidy. And we thought we could get that worked out.
Excuse me, John, I want to ask,
Yeah.
just be clear, what did the news release say? You're saying there was a news release, right?
Yes.
What did it say?
Can I read it?
Yes, please.
During Monday morning's Jefferson County Board of Supervisors meeting, the Board of Supervisors discussed Care Ambulance's financial proposal. Among other things, the Care Ambulance Service is proposing that the county go down to one ambulance with the possibility of running another, which would operate from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to cover the entire county while asking for more funding and providing fewer services. Under the current contract, the ambulance service receives more than $366,000 a year and is now asking for over $1.5 million, which worries Supervisors Darren Hamilton about the increase in taxes. According to sources, if Care Ambulance approves this measure, this will put the entire county at risk and they will be in breach of contract. Under the current contract with the ambulance service, which does not expire until the fall of 2023, Care Ambulance must provide 2 trucks with 2 full-time paramedics for a 24-hour period. Care is in the business of making a profit, said Lee Dimmitt, soon to be Jefferson County Supervisor. We are looking at life and death situations. How can you put how can we put a financial component? Does that make sense? Under the normal circumstances during the fire call, an ambulance must remain on site for the duration of a call, a service that can no longer be provided under current circumstances. With one rig, if the ambulance is preoccupied with a call and another call comes through the county, we'll have to call for mutual aid, and it's not always certain if the mutual aid call will be answered. It could take over an hour for another ambulance to respond, and there may not even be a paramedic on board, said one source. Issue also arise when the ambulance service transports patients to another location that could be up to 4 hours away, and in that time frame, the county will again have to rely on mutual aid. The ambulance board will be meeting tomorrow at 1 p.m. at JCHC to discuss moving the county down to one ambulance and other financial proposals.
So the idea is to make these changes prior to the end of this contract, effective immediately, maybe?
If I could just interject, I will say that up until last week, all of our negotiations have been with one individual at Care Ambulance, and I don't necessarily know that this new information has 100% bearing on our negotiations with Care Ambulance.
Because it came from a different source.
Yeah, so
That's
I
what
would
we think.
that our understanding, perhaps, and it's not something that we had discussed at the board at any point. We are going to be having a meeting tomorrow, but up until this point, we had negotiated a certain increase to the subsidy, which obviously is not this.
Mayor, in response to your request of us, a request for a joint meeting, I don't know if you need a vote or a recommendation, but I would like to officially make a recommendation that we hold off on the meeting until we find out what happens with the 28E meeting tomorrow, and only meet if there's an emergency after that, before the end of the year. And we'll look at what we need to do next year, but with response to the item on our agenda right now, my recommendation would be we wait as
Yeah,
a city council.
I think some of this new stuff just came up.
Yeah.
Now, whether, whether she had some other information before that prompted her call to me, I can't say. So this was just the request, and I would agree, the fact that there is a meeting tomorrow that should be held off, and
I agree.
you'll be
I think we should
communicating with John, and we can call a meeting if we need to.
I think we should only act on certain information, not
facts.
speculation.
I agree.
And
Yep.
the recommendation Ways and Means is going to make tonight is certain information.
Okay. So at this point, we'll just take no action on that. Okay, thank you. Committee and board reports on beautification. We have two people that have risen their hands, if you will, to participate. Ava Boyd, and she's here. And Jennifer Jimenez. She has a business here in town called Top Notch. And really thankful some young people are participating, and it's really great. And so I would like approval to accept these two people into beautification.
So moved.
Moved by Esty. Second by Toohill. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Thank you. Thank you for serving. Appreciate it very much. And then the Fairfield Arts and Convention Center, we need two city appointments. And Scott Willman and Donald Revelinsky are new board members. I'd like to make them city-appointed members with your approval.
So moved.
Moved by Anderson.
Second.
Second by Rasmussen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. And then, since it's our last meeting, I'd just like to recognize publicly some of the retirements that we've had, because these have been long-term employees, for Fairfield. Darrell Bisgard in Street Department, Ed Wood, who's just now retiring in Park and Rec, and earlier this year we had Rebecca Johnson at the library. Just want to big shout out to all those people for staying with us for so many years and doing a great job. Also on committees, Sue Gale and Paula Armstrong, who led beautification for many years, are now moving on to some other different things. On the library board, we had Michael Porter, and Michael Porter worked really, really hard for the library board, did a lot of things, and he was on there for many years. So again, we appreciate their work. On the Fairfield Arts and Convention Center, Sally Johnston, who's been on and off that board for many years and was a founding member, and also Roberta Sloat, who's just going off. So just, again, want to publicly thank those long-term committee members on those committees, and job well done. And so if you see them, thank them for their service to Fairfield. And I think that is all I have. So, city attorney report?
Yes. I don't know how much more to say about the ambulance situation, except my reaction today when I got a chance to read was that couldn't have come out that fast. I think the 2080 agency is getting set up by somebody outside the agency. I'm going to continue to think that way until this smokes out, either through the discussions we have with the 28 agency, figuring out who authorized this when we were in the process of trying to keep this as smooth as possible and renegotiate. I think when I say we're being set up, it's to prevent us from being in a position to negotiate, period. And if things stay like they've been described, I don't think there's anybody in the agency members group that will have much to do with the care provider anymore, and I think that's a tragedy because it was going well until the last month or so. So that being said, and we'll have more to report to you, and we'll see where we are on the 19th if that happens. We also had something in the last few days where the city got drawn into a lawsuit. We went to ICAP. It's basically a sidewalk case, but a couple things came up about it, and we mentioned one of the things on our work session last Saturday was a review of our sidewalk program but our defense attorney appointed by ICAP likes the idea that we have an ordinance that defines everything and also was the basis for improvements on our sidewalks in all of the city wards not too long ago. This particular situation, somebody tripped in a drop on the sidewalk level. It's about 1.5 inches from what I could see of a picture with a yardstick going down in it. It's wider than my thumb, but it would be dangerous to people in spiked heels and people that weren't picking up their feet, I guess is the way I would describe it. And there's slip and fall and there's trip and fall, and the trip and fall is the affirmative defense. So we've got a good defense person on it, but probably it will be a while before the newspaper picks up on this, but we are a defendant. Our defense attorney is going to draw in the adjacent property owner who didn't get named to start out with, and that's because the city has deeper pockets. So not to be alarmed, but it's not anything at this point where we need to be in a closed session talking about the factual circumstances in great detail, but we may be approached by defense counsel or ICAP down the road as this unfolds. At some point, we'll probably have a discussion about the backs and forths, maybe 3-4 months down the road. They usually don't unfold for at least the first 120 days after something like this is filed. So not going to mention any names and so forth at this point, but you should be aware that it's out there and they're still going through the initial pleadings. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else.
Okay, great. We'll go to committee board reports. Board of Adjustment, and I think Melanie is going to review that quick for us.
There's actually no council action on the Board of Adjustment because the 2 action items that were granted were special exceptions rather than variances. To review those, we had one request for a variance related to the height and location of a fence because of the deer population, and I would say it was very tastefully done. The height of her fence, it exceeded the height, but it was very tastefully done. They granted a special exception for that property owner. And then the other was an accessory building that they granted as a special exception until that accessory building can be made into a usable housing space. So again, no council action, but that is what happened at the last Board of Adjustment meeting.
Any questions to Melanie?
Thank you.
If not, we will move on. Ways and Means?
Yes, Ways and Means met on Saturday at noon following our work session, and we had a request from ambulance agency through Elizabeth Estee to grant her $40,000 additional authority in negotiating with the ambulance provider. So we are recommending that we give her that authority to go back into negotiations with that amount, up to that amount, on the condition that there will be no escalation clause in any final contract should she use that money.
The 40,000 is
in addition to the existing, so it's increased authority.
Immediate or for the following year?
Oh, it would be for the next contract.
Next contract, yeah. Okay.
And the next contract, you mean when this contract expires?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're negotiating for the following 3-year contract.
Yep.
So they're negotiating for the next 3-year contract to begin in October
1st, 2023.
of 24. 23, I'm sorry. And so we're asking you to authorize her an additional $40,000 in authority to negotiate that settlement with that contract.
That's a subsidy, right?
Yep.
Okay. Second.
Okay. Been first and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, if not, please call roll.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Estee.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Okay, again, that's a $40,000 additional subsidy for the new contract, starting in 2023.
Well, authority to negotiate that much more.
Yes. Correct. Sorry, I didn't say that quite right, but you're right.
Now that it's public, it will be that much.
Okay.
It's a top secret limit. No one knows about it.
Okay. Housing Task Force update.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to report that our population of the city is roughly around 9,500. And we had over a 12% participation rate in terms of people who submitted responses to the survey. That's 1,205 through, actually we extended it through Sunday, 1,205. So we think that's a good number. It's a lot of good, we think there's going to be a lot of good data. The Housing Task Force meets again on Wednesday, this Wednesday evening, and they will be reviewing the survey results and creating an action plan with the next steps. So we'll certainly keep the city apprised.
I'm sorry, Paul, is that 1,200 people or 1,200 households?
1,205 individual submissions of the survey. So people. It might be someone sitting there with, you know, their SO, significant other, or whatever, but
I think husband and wife would do it together, but
yeah,
if it's 1,200 households, that'd be nice.
Yeah, 1,205.
Good job, guys.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's not an election, you're not getting paid for it, but people really are interested.
Yeah.
And they're engaged, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
When will we see the results of?
We're going to meet, the Housing Task Force meets this Wednesday to review the results. Our facilitator is the Iowa State Extension Service. They have a tremendous amount of experience in this area, so they'll be meeting with the task force. I suggest they'll be reviewing the results and have some suggestions on how we move forward. And how we move forward, we will have a topic of discussion this Wednesday, and then I'll be reporting back to the council about what that means. So when exactly we're going to do what, not sure. We're going to be talking about it.
I think we're a ways away from having a final report back from Iowa State Extension yet. I think it's moving in a good direction at this point.
Yep.
Great. Thank you very much. Administrator and department reports?
The only thing I have is a reminder that our employee appreciation dinner is on Friday this week out at the Streets Department, 12 to 1:30. So come to the street shed with your appetite. It's a little bit different this year. Joe Hurd has decided he wants to actually do a little bit of the cooking. If you like spicy chili, I might provide one of those, and then there's other chilies that will be there also.
Don't we have Ed's retirement party?
When was it?
This Friday.
And go ahead.
Another part of the
You can
Oh,
talk.
sorry. Okay. Ed Wood's retirement celebration will be here on Wednesday, the 21st, from 2 to 4. He's been here over 39 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Long time. And then you want to mention the strategic plan.
Oh, that's right. We talked about the strategic plan on Saturday. So I got one homework assignment back, which was early, so bonus credit to, there's another one, so there's bonus points.
What are your bonus?
Oh, I got 3.
Look at that.
I got 3. Yeah, there we go, gold stars.
Earlier.
We are not, obviously, since we didn't have it on the agenda for tonight, we can't discuss it or make any actions on it. So we will have that on the agenda in January so that we can finalize those things to continue with our budget process and move forward that direction.
Great, thank you. Melanie.
On the employee dinner, for public knowledge, and I'm going to put it up on the Facebook page, City Hall is closed from 12 to 1:30 on Friday for that, and the library is also closing from 12 to 1:15. I'm putting it up on the city's Facebook page, but just an
not Park and
FYI.
Rec.
Park and Rec is staying open. So,
But is the pool open?
that I don't know. All right, so the last item, tree assessments. Another item that you do not have action on tonight. This is kind of a heads up for you. So in November, the city brought in an independent certified arborist, and by independent, meaning he does not have a tree trimming or tree cutting business. So he is solely acting as an arborist. And he reviewed trees that our code compliance officer had identified as possibly dead or dangerous. And he reviewed those to confirm whether there is kind of an immediate need to take them down, or if they're alive, which I will say all of the ones that Weston had identified were in fact dead and need to come down relatively soon. And they actually found a few extras while they were out and about. Attached or on this spreadsheet, there are 23 trees that are on private property, which need to be removed for the safety, and 3 additional trees which should be removed because they're considered invasive species by the DNR. I'm bringing this to you tonight because it's a very long list. I think it's maybe 70 pages is the report from the arborist. Most of it is pictures, but
85.
85, okay, yep. And typically the city only removes 1 or 2 trees on private property per year. And with having Weston full-time, being able to look at this full-time, we had a lot more trees to discuss. I will say a lot of them, there's a fair amount of them that are ash that have just finally reached the point where they're dangerous. And that may be another reason why the number's a lot higher than what we've seen in the past. So the 3 that have received second notices, they will come to council for approval to remove at your first meeting in January, or I should say action for you guys. You can decide whether you want to have it removed or not. The remaining ones, the letters that we send them, we say you have until the 6th of January to remove it or to contact us with a plan of action. If we do not hear from those who have only received the first notice, sometime in February, then you will see that larger list of those if they do not contact us. If they continue to ignore, or if they ignore the letters that they receive, then we'll bring them to council to have either city crews or our tree service cut them down and assess those to the property owner. That is part of our code that the council approve removal of the trees on private property, and it also requires that we notify them of the date of the council meeting that we're going to discuss it. So there's a lot of legwork to do on this, but again, given the volume of trees that we're talking about, I wanted you guys to have the list ahead of time. I did write down which wards they're in, so if you want to look at just the ones that are in your ward or in your neighborhood, you can do that. And then we'll talk about them in January and later in the year.
Just out of curiosity, about how much does it cost to take one of these down?
$1,000.
Yeah.
So $25,000.
Yeah. Okay. Some of them are relatively out in the open. You know, you're not going to have
lines.
Yeah.
Fences.
Then there are others that are going to be more expensive because they are right next to a house. And those are the ones, unfortunately, those are the ones that really need to come down because they're going to fall on that person's house and they're going to fall on the neighbor's house. There were a couple ones where the guy kind of goes, "How soon can you get this down, Weston? Because I'm really afraid of this limb falling like on the street," kind of thing. So he was a great guy to work with. We do plan on having him back, you know, once a year to look at Weston's list, and but I think he gave good information in those reports. So let myself or Weston know if you have questions, and then, like I said, we'll discuss it after the first of the year.
The 3 that are invasive, those are living trees, right?
Yes. Yep. And I think the reports note that they're all the female seed bearing. Well, the tree of heavens are the female seed bearing ones, which are worse, so to speak. And they always are. Tom, you want to say that a little louder for the microphone?
Easy, careful.
So state law does not say that the invasive species shall be removed, but they are on our list of trees that are not allowed in the right of way, not allowed in the city limits. And such as poison ivy. When we're having other problems with a property, we might include the invasive species as a way to clean up the property. And I know one of these properties has other things they need to clean up as well.
Just for the people who might be listening who have a tree, what does it mean when you say a plan of action? What would be acceptable?
Telling us that you have reached out to your own tree company, or maybe you're going to do it yourself. But we want a timeline of as far as when you plan on doing that work.
Do they need to sign off with Weston?
Yes, there is a form for an extension that's available on the website that I think includes the requested amount of an extension and the reason why for the extension. So maybe you're going to do the work yourself, but you want the ground to be frozen. So you're going to do it in mid-February. Or you are going to hire a company, but they can't come until March. All of those would be acceptable reasons to extend it. If it's
Just waiting for good weather?
waiting for good weather, probably not a good answer, acceptable
March.
answer. Yeah. So.
And then if they're working the right of way, they do need a permit, correct?
Right, and yes, yeah. Even if the tree is on private property, but you have to access it from the right of way or pull the tree down into the right of way, those would be.
And people who are developing a plan who have a tree in a more dangerous location need to have a quicker timeline.
It would depend on what the report says. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. And Weston's received the report. He's gone over it with the arborist, and he can talk with each of those property owners if they have questions.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Melanie. Thanks. All righty, that's it. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Toohill,
Second.
second by Gandy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign.
I've been up for a lot.
Meeting adjourned.
I actually laid down
Good job, folks.
a little nap